We have to be very careful about how we interpret what we read, especially the Bible. And I'll tell you why. When I research these secret societies, and I research the Bible, and by the way, I'm a Christian, so if you're a Christian, don't think I'm knocking your religion. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I found. I have found that at the very heart and core of all these secret societies lurks the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the ancient Jewish mysticism.
Başladı. Giderek daha sorun başladı.
The marshal da the kursa izaydı mantık matematiğe şasını yazıyor. Bu tayları bu sıkıntı jetzt sich mal verschlossen sind. Das steht in der Aufgabe in Tannenscheid wegen dem Wein in Hemmet, das ist nicht so. Also die ganze Zeit, die uns an der Peru shoppen soll, wenn wir von Sofzimmer wegen der Alte Rede, also die friedige Zeit, die Sache Peru später, ja, kennenlernen. Selbst wenn die Zeit mal eine Kultur so kennenlernen, lernen soll, ja, auch ein bisschen Kabbalah in Dusche, das ist mir alles geblieben. Bei uns steht in den Chassidus Chabad in Israel, hat die Chassidus Chabad dort mal herangestellt in Janet und Kabbalah und dem Mitzabir, auf der es von Kochen bedienen das, zu will an der Leben Chassidus Chabad, und dann von den Janet Kabbalah schon bis Kulch am Nechet. Ja, aber mir ist das gut, dass damals, das schreiben wir, wie Akel Kehre. Es war damals mit Schäler, mit Jäze, mit Chassidus Chabad, schaut der alte Rebbe sagt, mit Jäze, mit Chassidus Chabad. So der Rebbe sagt, mir lieber soll Naru Pasche. Aber als Amenico von dem alten Rebbe kann ich nicht sagen, man kennt den alten Rebbe. Hier dacht zich, het Sofsim Chofei in Tanya bringt sich es Mevar, der Chassidus auf die Derech Arizal. Er schreibt nicht erst, er schreibt nicht die Kerisch auf Chochmes HaKabbalah, nur auf die Derech Chassidus auf die Derech Arizal. Also bringt in der Alte in den Sofsim Chofei. Aber Bescheid der Alte Rebbe bringt in derselbe Geres HaKedish. Man darf lernen in Kabbalah, in Messiah. Und da riesig am Sefer Atani und die Chassidus lernen wir hunderter Maimorim, ist doch eine sichere Sache, dass es nicht schaden kann, Sira wie Chalem, in derselbe Jahres. Und aber dann für Naru Pasche, das haben wir nicht schäler, die was wir schreiben, andere Sachen, aber bei uns in der Kabbalah, aber schaut, wir lernen Chassidus Chabad, wir lernen Kabbalah und Nigel und Chassidus Chabad, auch über Jahre. Das ist verleiht und das war ja, wie es machlich sein soll, sein Batzloch, aber Naru Pasche, dann Zürich State.
They gathered from all corners of the globe. Chabad, an Orthodox Jewish Hasidic movement, has become one of the largest Jewish organizations in the world, and their global emissaries, or shluchim, gathered this weekend for their annual conference to celebrate the posting of emissary number 10,000 from everywhere, from New York to New Zealand, from Ireland to the Ivory Coast, all of them on a mission from a man who passed away a quarter of a century ago, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, known simply as the Rebbe.
שמעתי וראיתי את המסר שלך.
Weil es kam in die Kalle, Maxim, der Schick, Asso, Partachti, der Leich, an ihm, der Verraden, aber in einem Krieg.
אני מתכוון להמשיך בדיוק בקו הזה. קלטתי היטב את המסר שלך.
זה הקו הכי טוב בשביל...
הקו היחידי.
שלא יצטרכו לכל עניין של בחומר ובכל וקניציה. בשוב ובמחס כבשל. הקו הצלחה.
אני מודה לך על ההזדמנויות שנתת לבוא ולעזר בך, לשרוד, לקבל את הסיוע ולהחשיש שאתה נותן לי, לא רק לי, לכל עם ישראל.
אני עדיין בתחיל הפרמטה שלי.
אני יודע, בגלל זה...
גם את בתחיל התפקיד האחרון.
אני בא בתחילת מעשה לאדם בתחילת מעשה. ואני מתכוון לחזור אליך.
עתתי صادق لصادق المير ב9-10 אנשים. לבד ראיתי סלאשים, כאילו שהקודש ברוך הוא לצד הזה. ברכה והצלחה, ניסים של הקודש ברוך הוא. ברכה והצלחה.
We have to be very careful about how we interpret what we read, especially the Bible. And I'll tell you why. When I research these secret societies, and I research the Bible, and by the way, I'm a Christian, so if you're a Christian, don't think I'm knocking your religion. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I found. I have found that at the very heart and core of all these secret societies lurks the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the ancient Jewish mysticism. It is a method of encoding information through a system of mathematics and numbers. It is some of the most ancient knowledge that man has ever possessed and has been kept secret and given only to those who have proven themselves worthy through the process of initiation. Nobody knows where it comes from. I can tell you this. It was there long before the Jews came along. The Jews just took it and preserved it, and they passed it down, and it's used by everybody. Because it's at the heart and core of the secret knowledge, the metaphysics, the real science that none of us know anything about. These people that belong to the secret societies never dared to write down in any language what they knew, what it was that they were guarding, because then someone could steal it and then the secret would be out. So they devised secret systems of encoding the secrets of the ages, the knowledge, the hidden knowledge, the occult. Now, occult doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean the devil. It doesn't mean Satan. Occult means hidden. It means hidden. That's all it means. So they took this knowledge and they made it occult through a system of encoding, encryption, one of which is mathematics, numbers. Another is architecture. Everybody wonder, why do they have a fraternal organization called the Freemasons? Aren't those the guys that build walls? You bet they do. But every wall they build contains the secrets that have been kept and maintained throughout the ages, and it's encoded in the architecture and in the measurements of the buildings and in the mathematical formulas used to derive the geometry, the shape, the length and breadth and height of rooms. It's all encoded there.
When I first made the correlations between Kabbalah and science, I was stunned.
We do know that Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts, certain texts of the Kabbalah.
Well, the Kabbalistic description of creation is coming from a single little point, from a speck, and of having matter form and time and space form all together at the very beginning. This sounds very much to me like the description of the Big Bang.
I couldn't believe that the Kabbalists could derive these truths without really knowing any mathematics or physics.
It is certainly true that in string theory, the number 10 is the dimension of space-time for supersymmetrical string theories, and 26 for bosonic string theories stand out as a requirement of the mathematics.
All the things that could destroy string theory, all the things that do destroy every rival theory to string theory, they are all eliminated in precisely 10 and 26 dimensions. These dimensions are magic. We physicists don't know where these dimensions come from.
The Zohar says those things. It could have been a lucky guess. I don't know.
The Zohar speaks of impure fats and pure fats, and that relates very well to modern medicine's view of the two types of cholesterol.
Now you tell me, how come that's the only text for 2,000 years old can have that kind of information so clearly there?
They knew things about the universe that took us till now to discover.
I think it's rather intriguing that the Zohar mentions cholesterol and mentions the liver and bile.
What I like about Kabbalah is that it has a rather profound view of a creator, of a divine being that transcends all possible notions that we could have.
There can be an interface between science and spirituality.
The Zohar's notion that light is a realm of no time and no space is quite consistent with special relativity.
What's been stopping it so far are, number one, the lack of a good concept, and I think the Kabbalah is offering that now in the context of modern science, and two, a reticence on the part of both scientists and people in religion to mix the two.
It's rather amazing, this uncanny reflection of some of the most advanced cosmology coming from our satellites, coming from our atom smashers, coming from our blackboards, that are mirrored in the Zohar and ancient Kabbalistic texts.
Quote an isolated opinion from the Talmud, a rabbi may quickly object, saying, "But that is not the overall opinion of the Talmud. That is not the definitive view." What the Jewish Encyclopedia provides us is a definitive overview of perhaps hundreds of rabbinic statements on any subject, giving us accurate summaries of what the Talmud generally teaches.
In its article on Gentiles, the Jewish Encyclopedia begins to define what makes a Jew so different from a Gentile. According to the rabbis, only Israelites are men. Gentiles they classed not as men, but as barbarians. Since Gentiles are not men in the fullest sense, so the Gentile is not a neighbor of a Jew. Further, since Gentile laws were too crude to admit of reciprocity, meaning too crude to be taken seriously, the Gentile was forever beneath the Jew. Gentiles were outlawed by God from the beginning, and thus had no property rights. The Almighty offered the Torah to the Gentile nations also, but since they refused to accept it, He withdrew His shining legal protection from them and transferred their property rights to Israel, who observed His law. Since the Talmud outlawed the child, or issue of a Gentile, as that of a beast, a Gentile had as little legal rights in a Jewish court as did an animal. The Talmud states that if a Gentile sue an Israelite, the verdict is for the defendant, the Israelite. Conversely, if the Israelite is the plaintiff, he obtains full damages. Because the Talmud conspires against Gentiles, if a Jew was ever caught telling a Gentile what the Talmud really says, such a person deserves death. So vile was the nature of a Gentile that the great Simeon ben Yohai said, "The best among the Gentiles deserves to be killed. The best of snakes ought to have its head crushed." Jews, however, are exalted beings in the Talmud, worthy of praise. Christ described the Pharisee who blessed himself, saying, "I thank thee, Lord, that I am not as other men." An eminent Talmudic rabbi says the same. "Blessed be thou, who hast not made me a Goy, or Gentile." There is a special antagonism between the Talmud and Jesus. The Talmud attacks him everywhere it can, even his mother. Mary, the Talmud says, was a whore who mated with carpenters. She who was the descendant of princes and governors played the harlot with carpenters. It naturally followed that the scribes declared Christ to be a bastard. In its article on Jesus, the Jewish Encyclopedia says that Jewish writings defame Christ. It is the tendency of all these sources to belittle the person of Jesus by ascribing to him illegitimate birth, magic, and a shameful death. Jesus, according to this article, was considered one of the three worst enemies of Judaism who came to an ignoble end. The Talmud says they subjected him to 4 deaths: stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. The Talmud also says he is now in hell, punished with boiling hot excrement. What is Christ's advice as he speaks to us out of hell? The Jewish Encyclopedia quotes Jesus as telling us above all to bless the Jews. He says, "Further their well-being. Do nothing to their detriment. Whoever touches them touches even the apple of his eye."
Have, including many Jews, is that God creates man from God's being as the uncreated. That is, people think that God retains the position of Ein Sof and creates man from Ein Sof directly into the creation. Doing so would obliterate the creation. Also, it would be terribly unfair of God to remain on the level of Ein Sof, the totally uncreated, God in and of itself, and make us suffer being human. How would God know what we feel? How would God know what it's like to be vulnerable, to have problem children, to have debts, to be wounded, to be sick, to be poor? How would God know this if God was remaining aloof? And from the position of Ein Sof, creating humanity. That's not what God does. God comes down into human form in order to create humanity. The human form that God comes down into in order to create humanity, in order to create the entire creation, is the Jews. We are what you think Jesus is. The Jews are God in a meat suit. It is not one person, it is not one figure, it is all of us in our many numbers, in every generation. This is the truth of the matter.
Chapter 53. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs, and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray, we have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken, and he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors.